Hello everyone, this is Mel Balsamo, your presenter for today's webinar. Today we'll talk about InfoPath beautification. So everyone, welcome to the InfoPath Beauty Spa. We have only one ultimate goal, to help enrich your InfoPath knowledge. This is a live demo, so we do appreciate your patience as we keep things simple yet informative. We value your time, so let's keep it short and sweet. A recurring theme that you will see throughout this webinar is the emphasis on forms beautification. Look and feel, layout, there's usability too, and it could go on. These are all very important because it doesn't matter how fast your form is or how accessible it is if users cannot use the form. We want to give our forms a touch of beauty. You also want the form filling experience to be pleasant and seamless. So if things look pale, let the colors bring them to life. Use themes with matching colors, consistent font. For branding, you'd want to always display your company logo. And as everyone knows, beauty starts from head to toe. So don't forget to add your header and footer. And of course, you don't want any clutter. No clutter ever. Users may not remember a very clear and concise, usable form, but they will certainly remember a clunky, long, and messy form. It's much better to be part of the former than the latter in this case. There are some simple and effective techniques that you can implement to ensure that the form is usable for the end users. At the end of the day, the ultimate goal is making sure that our users are happy. We want them to feel they're important, that they're given the royal treatment. We'll try to address as many of these as possible during this webinar. Let's start with the UI. UI stands for User Interface. It provides a means of accepting inputs from a user and rendering outputs to display the results of those inputs. This can simply mean the user types and the screen displays the text. We often are visually impressed by web content. For example, the Seashell Books website. It seems at first like a great Amazon competitor. The site is laid out well and the color scheme is pleasant. However, a closer look reveals that the site has no search box. And once you start to look for items in the store, you can quickly become lost with no easy way back to the homepage. Amazon, by contrast, may not be as aesthetic, but you can always find what you're looking for. It offers a history list of what you browsed along with recommendations based on your personal preferences. What I'm saying is, UI is not just about appearance. It is about the inherent functionality our users expect to be there. You know for a fact that you judge websites and web content when you visit them. Your users will also develop preferences and biases based on the presentation and functionality of your forms. As form designers, you need to think through the experience you will present your user and leverage all InfoPath has to offer to give the user the best chance of getting things right the first time. And, like most things in life, users will prefer a more attractive form to a homely one. They may not express that preference, but we all enjoy seeing and using items that are nicely designed. So why should a form experience be any different? Talk about user experience, abbreviated as UX or UE, is the actual experience the user has with a product, whether it be a website, a phone, a camera, or a form. While the UI is what we design, the UX is what happens when the user actually uses what we've made for them. You, as a designer, have an intimate knowledge of how the form should work. Your users will also be very close to the functionality and have an expected idea of how the form will operate in practice. As form designers, you want their expected experience to meet the actual experience. When this does not happen, users become disillusioned and often will not use the forms or product as intended. In order to do this, you will need to ask yourself these questions. What will their experience be? Will they be able to simply use the form or will it require training? Is it something they'll use frequently or infrequently? So then we move on to the best practices. Number 1, simple. Simplicity as beauty. It is the first key to good design. Don't create too much clutter. Again, no to clutter. Group things together and make groupings clear, whether through the use of tabs or conditionally formatted sections. Try to keep areas sized to prevent your users from having to scroll. Next, logic. Verify the logical flow of your form. There are some things we naturally expect in a certain order, like filling out our name before our address in the shipping form. Think very carefully before tinkering with accepted standards. You also want to use data validation, and you want to use it carefully. Be sure that the user can not only fix the incorrect information, but that they have guidance on what is incorrect and why. Next, color contrast. Use color contrast wisely. Low contrast for less important items, higher contrast for more important ones. Tooltips and guidance text should always be used wherever possible. Next, tab indices. Set tab indices appropriately on controls to help user tab through the fields. A -1, for example, takes an item out of the tab index, and I'll show this to you later during the demo. Finally, label everything. Anything the user needs to fill out should be labeled. And this list could go on, so I'll try to address the rest during the demo. I have a couple of beautification tips I want to share to you today. First, you'd want to create a good-looking starter form that you can use as a base over and over. We do have a bunch of examples out there on our website, and 3 of them would be the Chrome, Vertical Tabs XTP, and the InfoPath Starter. These use common sections or XML template parts, for example, the header with the logo and the title, the date today, and some guidance text in there. Most InfoPath forms these days also involve workflow, so you'd want a section at the top with the user, the current state of the form, if it's submitted or approved or rejected, and probably a hide and show section at the bottom that shows the history, when it got approved, when it got rejected, why. Some comments in there would probably help. And the body would go inside a tabbed area. The Vertical Tabs XTP lets you do this. It separates your form's body into views or sections to avoid clutter. And at the bottom goes the footer with terms and conditions, any other informative stuff like the form version number and a link that the users will click on to contact your support. Next, pre-populate the form with data. This is one of the best practices. Make your form data-driven. You can use secondary data sources that would come from either a SharePoint list or a table from a SQL database or a simple XML file. The goal is to reduce data entry time, so instead of having them type in a text box, they can just select an option from a drop-down, right? We also don't want to show all sections in the form. We just want to show the current focus. Because if your view is very long and it has a lot of content, it would end up having performance issues. So you'd want to separate your pages by using sections or views. And again, the Vertical Tabs XTP could help you on that. Guidance text. Again, you'd want to provide help wherever possible. You can be fancier by adding hidden text next to each field that gets shown when the user clicks on a button, or as simple as a question mark button at the top of the form would do. It would hide and show the help section. Adding conditional background colors to your controls would also let the users know which fields are required. Or you can do the usual, add data validation to your fields so that the controls are marked with red asterisks until they are filled out. And then disable the submit button until the form is complete. This is to avoid users from having to click on the button just to see a big error pop out of their face telling them that required fields are missing. And that's it for today's tips. I want to show you next some of our internal forms for sample UI concepts. And then we're going to create a new form and configure the Vertical Tabs XTP as well as the Hide and Show XTP. I want to first show you our forms board site. Look at this guy. Look at the gradient background here. And you got the logo there. This is actually a website. This is not a form yet. Okay, you got your navigation links up there. The title of the page and some footer going on here. And let's go ahead and open a new leave request form. I'd like you to look at the difference between our website and the InfoPath form, the leave request form. Maximize this. And look at this. You're already looking at an InfoPath form. It has the same UI, same layout as our website. It has that gradient background going on there. It has the same footer with all the informational stuff, got the link to our website. You can go to that, click on that if you want to visit our website. The logo, the slogan, and there's the show policy button here. It turns into hide policy if you want to hide the stack. So see, this is a little long
section, right? You don't want this to always display. Look at how I'm trying to scroll down to see the rest of the form, right? So by default, you just want to hide it, and people who already know your policy don't need to see that, right? So that's just one example of making your form shorter, reducing clutter. And what do we have here? There's a little icon that allows me to submit suggestions. So anything that I want to improve in this lead request form or any suggestions I might have, I can enter it here and click submit suggestions. So how cool is that? All right, so let's see. There's some color coding here. It's not that strong of a color. If it's approved, it rows or get highlighted with green, submitted just white, and I don't see any overlapping entries in here. So things that are informational, they help, right? Like I don't want to go in here and type in or add in, file in a lead request that Ernesto had already filed, right? I know that it's going to give me an overlapping error there. I don't want to waste my time doing that just to find out that someone's overlapping, right? Yep, so that's that. And I want to show you the forms board template. I want to show you the template, the starter form that I created this lead request form from. And let's see, go to my sample folder, open this in the designer, and this is it. So I got everything in here. I got my logo, I got my slogan, and that help section, suggestion section, form name. So whenever we decide we want to create another internal form, Mel, go ahead and create an asset tracker. Okay, I can do that, and I can use my starter form. I just change my title in here, right? And what else? Of course, I need to add my controls. I need to add my fields, but at least it already has saved me time because I don't need to re-add my footer, my header, and all that other basic stuff. So that's why you need a starter form. Okay. And I guess I'll show you next the Forms portfolio. This is a library of all our XTPs and some starter forms, starter templates. Let's open up the vertical tabs XTP. That looks interesting to me. Whoa, that's a bright color right there. Look at that. I designed this form, but I realized just now that it's too strong of a color, so I will go ahead and edit that, make it a little lighter. You can see here, up here you see tabs lined up horizontally. So again, this makes this form short, right? I don't have to scroll through the entire form. Things are separated. Now let me go back to this images tab. It looks interesting to me. It showcases one of our cool template parts. This is the picture perfect XTP. Look at how I could see just the thumbnails here and some information about that image. And there's actually a zoom in button that shows me a better view of that image. How cool. You can zoom back out and look at the other one. Yep, this again saves space in your form, right? They would only want to zoom in whatever they want to do. Change logs. This is a good way of providing like tracking or some history on your form. Like when did it get saved and who saved it, what date and time, what version, some comments, right? And when was it edited again? There's actually a separate submit section that I believe when you submit this gets logged to the change log. It gets added to the log there. But look at how this submit button is disabled for me. I can't click on it. Why? Probably because I have I haven't completed this one yet. And look at this red shaded text box here. There probably is something wrong with it, so I'll try to correct it. Setting out. So there. That's right now. Let's enter the version number and try to select the status. Now that submit button is enabled, so I don't really have to enter my change comments. But yeah, so I basically discussed all the tips that I provided. Disable the submit button until the form is complete. Make sure that your form is not cluttered. Use tabs there. Provide help text. Right now, there's no help in this guy. Yeah. Okay, we're done with the internal forms. Okay, let's try this really quick. I'm going to design a new form, a blank InfoPath 2010 filler form, and I will delete everything. First, select my vertical tabs XCP, and look at that. It just added everything for me. It's laid out nice. I don't know if all of you have seen this vertical tabs XCP, but as its name says, what it's called, right? Vertical tabs. They're not up here. All right. So it does provide you the color already. You can change that to whatever you like. Go ahead and name this webinar form. It gives you a default of 12 tabs, but you can have like maybe 5 only. And your form title, let's say this is my page or tab 1. Okay, let's try to preview this. Okay, look at what happens when I first previewed it. This blue shade around that, it's ugly. How come it's not in here? Okay, and I hit tab on my keyboard. It keeps tabbing out of those other tabs through 12, and from here, from tab 12, I tab out again. Where does it take me? Back to tab 7. So it skips those tab 1 through 6. Why? Let's look at tab 1, button properties. Let's look at advanced. This is where your tab index properties are. So you set it to -1, and so you want this control to be skipped when users are hitting the tab on their keyboard. Let's look at tab 7. The default is 0. So anything that has 0 in the tab index, yeah, it will not be skipped. Users can tab out of them. Okay, so let's just do that for this tab 1. Let's do 0, and let's preview again. And there's the blue shade, and okay, look at that. It jumps straight to 7. From 12, it jumps back to tab 1. So you get the idea. All right. So what I'm going to do is I will configure this to switch views. What are these tabs for? These are supposed to take you to another section of your form, right? So you're going to have multiple views, I assume, right? Let's create another view. We'll call this view 2. I'm just creative like that. And again, I just delete everything. And let me copy this entire thing, Control-C, and go back to that new view, Control-V. And this is going to be my tab 2. And what will be the active tab in this view 2? I guess it's a tab 2, right? So let's try to move this down here and delete that extra space up there and rename Sync tab 2. And again, best practice, one more thing, that's one of the best practices, your IDs, button IDs should have descriptive IDs. Let's call this button or tab 2. It's easier to debug like that. So we call this tab 1, tab 1. Okay, so now you know that when your users are in view 2 and viewing this, they'll get an indication, or which is the current tab, which tab they are in, right? So then from tab 2, you want them to be able to go back to the other views. So your tab 1 will have a rule that switches views. It's an action, and always name your rules. Again, best practice. This is going to be switch view and switch views, switch back to view 1. I can copy this rule starting InfoPath 2010. InfoPath provided that handy copy and paste rules. And I just want to paste that rule in my view 1 here on tab 2, because when I'm on tab 1 and click on tab 2, I want to be switched to view 2. Okay, and let's see. Let's preview. This is my tab 1. I click on tab 2. This is my tab 2. And you know what gets highlighted here? You'd know which is the active tab. Okay? So you can go on and on. You can add those view switching rules to the rest of your tabs, how many tabs you have. That is that. Oh, one last. I just want to add the hide and show XTP in here. We still have time for a question and answer portion. Hide and show. So it added that. It has a couple instructions in there. We bind the section to the main root node. This is the section. We bind it to the main, which is the webinar form. Okay, cut and copy, or cut or copy the entire content. I'm cutting and pasting it right outside of that section. And delete the section, delete everything, delete that, delete my extra space. I don't want extra spaces. Now I can delete this too. I don't need this. I can actually also delete this only after I have moved everything here. Because right now, if you click here, it's bound to that vertical tabs FTP group, right? But I can actually move everything here outside of that section, so I can remove this. I don't need this group actually. Anyway, okay, so I did what you told me to do, what it told me to do, and let's try to adjust the width. I see borders in there. I just want to remove that border. Right. And let's see. Try this in preview. Okay, I see that hidden, and I click, and it gets displayed. How useful is that? You can enter your title there, and you can place your content there. Switch to tab 2, switch to tab 1. Okay, you get the idea, and I hope you learned a couple tips from that. If not, I can give more details, and I absolutely will on my next week's webinar, which is part 2. For now, let's move on to our question and answer portion. And before we do that, I'd like to hand off the mic over to Alyssa again to give some description about our feedback form. So Alyssa?
Okay, thanks to Mel again for, great presentation today. Just wanted to quick let you guys know about the survey that will be following the webinar. This will be sent to you, and you can fill it out and submit it. It's really helpful for us just so, for next time we can improve based on your feedback, and also you'll get sent samples and goodies after the webinar as well. So it benefits both of us if you fill out the survey and send those back. Thank you so much.
Thanks for that quick description, quick overview. On to our questions. I was reading the questions while Alyssa was talking, and we'll start with the first asker, first come, first serve from Miguel. What happens when users click on submit suggestion? Well, I didn't show that, but let me show you where suggestions get submitted. It gets submitted to our bug logger in here. Get submitted to library. This is actually using the DBXL platform. It's Qdabra's web services, but you can also configure the suggestion. You actually have a suggestion XTP. You can configure that to submit to a SharePoint list. So this is the bug logger library. You'll notice here it says suggestion, the form color is too bright. Patrick actually did notice that too, and he assigned it to form to fix. So yep, this was from the forms portfolio. This was from the lead request. So it gets submitted somewhere, basically, to answer your question, Miguel. Are the collapsing features available in browser forms and or IP 2007 from Gus? Yes, they are available. If your question is, do they work in the browser? Yes, they do. How to create a starter form and use it as a template. You create a starter form by going to File in your InfoPath Designer. Go to New and select your InfoPath form template. It can be a browser form or an InfoPath form filler, InfoPath filler form. Create a starter form. So again, the first thing I do is I rename the My Fields node there, and you start adding your stuff in here. I usually start with a blank, with a one column table like that. And I tell my table to not have any cell padding. And that is going to hold my header. And I tab out again for my second row, tab out again for my third row. This middle section here is going to be my body. This is going to be my footer. So in here, let's see, I'm not going to follow the best practices schema-wise. I'm going to let InfoPath do its default thing. I'll add a section. It's named Group 1. This, again, will hold my header. So inside that section, I'll add another table. Why do I keep using tables? I just want things aligned perfectly, right? So this is going to be my, it's going to hold my header, so I need some image in there. Actually, before I go deep with that, I'd like to show you something that I planned on demoing today. This I started from scratch. Similar way to what I showed you. I wanted to copy the InfoPath Dev website, and you all are familiar with it. So this was going to be my starter template. See it? It's like it only has a header and footer. So back to your question, and I know I spent a lot of time answering just that one question. Yeah, you use this as a template by just saving it out as an XSN the usual way, and whenever you want to create a new form out of it, you just open it back up in the designer. That's how easy it is. No other special method, in short. Okay, next from Julie, I had to edit my XSN views to use the same pictures that are in the resource files instead of more and more pictures. Yes, that's actually one of the best practices, and thank you for mentioning that. I'd like to mention that real quick here. So let's look for a picture button. Okay, this help text is actually a picture button. If I right click on here, look at this, look at where it's pointing. This is probably because I copied and pasted this from one of my other views, so it is being duplicated. Instead of doing that, you're going to want to make sure that that image is already in your resource file, so then you can just select that. And I know that that's my help button too. I already added it in my other views. If I click apply, it's just going to get resized. That's fine. I can size it back down like that. It's too small. Anyway, yeah. So again, all images that's going to be in your form, you want to go here in data, resource files, and add them as resource files. That way you can just reuse them over and over again by selecting those resource files, not having to copy and paste which will duplicate stuff and make your form size big. Okay, thanks, Julie. And one more from Miguel again. Is there a workaround to make filtered secondary data sources drop-down list work in the browser forms? Filtered secondary data sources. This does have a filtered drop-down list box. Let me see if I can give you an example. And again, this guy is working in the browser. Just give me a second. Okay, look. And you know that these brackets indicate filters, right? If I go here and filter data, there is a filter. It's only showing the active data for this in this drop down, and it works in the browser. There's no workaround needed for that. You need to offer a 1-day in-depth training just for this subject. An hour is too short to catch all the concepts. I know. That's why we are doing a second part of this webinar next week, and I'll be the same. I'll present again, and hopefully, I don't know, I guess you're asking for a training. Why don't you submit or fill out the feedback form, tell that in your feedback, and we can talk about it internally, decide what to do. Patrick is actually excited about this webinar. He said that this is the first time we're doing this, so yeah. And if you guys fill out the feedback form. Again, just what Elisa said, you're going to get the freebies, you're going to get free stuff. And for today, I'm packaging this up with the vertical tabs and the hide and show activity. Okay, I don't think there are other, looks like there are more questions. The questions keep coming and coming, guys. Because it doesn't get covered enough in the master class either. Is that so? Okay, just write it in your feedback form, Julie, and I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, I'm really going to end this now. Thank you for your participation. I really appreciate it. We had a wonderful Q&A session right there. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for, again, participating in our weekly webinar. This has been my second webinar in my entire lifetime, and I hope you guys enjoyed. And again, I'm sorry if I'm a live person, you know, I commit mistakes. Sorry about those mistakes, but again, thank you for your patience, and I wish to talk to you all next week. Take care. Bye, everyone.